All right, let's have a look at the EVH 5153 models. I'm going to start with the 50-watt blue model because it's my favorite, but then we can port all of these results over to the three other models, the 100-watt red, green, and blues. So let's just have a listen to this guy straight up, stock settings into this York Audio V30 Impulse. Sounds like this. I'm playing an STR LJ1, which is a Les Paul style guitar with PAF style humbuckers. Okay, so that's what it sounds like at the stock settings. Now, most people think of this amp as a heavy metal machine because there are so many modern bands using it. In fact, I've got some buddies who are recording an album at the moment and they're using, they had the 50-watt and the 100-watt version of this amp and they were absolutely loving it and it sounded amazing in the studio. So that kind of inspired me to pull the model out, and I think the model sounds pretty close if you ask me. So that is the stock settings. If we want to get tight modern metal distortion, the first thing we're going to do with this amp is turn the master volume down. I started about 3. We'll compensate by taking the level up a little bit, and it sounds like this. And you can hear that kind of honky mid-range disappears there and the low end tightens up immediately without doing anything. Now, this amp has so much gain. I like to turn the gain down to about 3.5. And just at these settings, you kind of get that sort of modern djenty kind of sound. Which is pretty cool. Of course, if you're going for a modern metal sound, let's cut some of the mids. Let's take those down to 3 and we boost the bass and the treble. This amp loves boosting the bass and the treble. Have a listen to this. Sounds pretty cool. The real trick to getting these amps super dialed in though is to use a front end boost. You can start with something like a tube screamer. So let's do that. Basically drive all the way off, level all the way up, leave the mids where they are at 0, and engaging it sounds like this. So that's sounding pretty cool. You can hear that the tube screamer. So that's awesome. The tube screamer is adding in those mids that we took out, but it's also tightening up the low end and smoothing out the highs, getting rid of that kind of grainy sound I was talking about before. My personal favorite block to use, though, is this preset block I've got that I call Workhorse. It is a pretty close replication of my Anarchy Audio Workhorse pedal, which is a Klon style overdrive handmade here in Australia. And in this particular block, I like to turn the tone to about 7, leave the low cut where it is, and this just sends this amp screaming wild. And that is more the sort of thing we're talking about. Other things I like to tweak, I'll turn the speaker comp up a little bit. And for an amp like this, because we want a tight sound, I'll turn the motor time constant down to 50. That's going to sound like this. final thing to play around with, the EL34 version of this amp is very popular, so you can replicate that just by changing this power tube type to EL34. That kind of adds a cool British character to it. So that is the 5153 50-watt blue. I really dig that. We can also play around with the presence control. If you turn it down, it sounds like this. Whereas if we turn it up, it gets a little bit brittle, but we can compensate for that by cranking the depth control as well, and then this gets super fat. And for me, that is where this amp absolutely sings. So that is how I dial in the 50-watt version. Let's have a listen to the 100-watt version at the same settings. You can see that a few things default out there. We'll set the depth at 8 and the presence at 6. I'll go to the power amp type, and we'll start with the L34s and go back to 6. We'll start with the L34s and go back to 6L6s. As you can hear there, heaps and heaps of clarity. I like the extra headroom here. Let's try it with 6L6s now. There we go. And that sounds pretty awesome and pretty metal. Again, it's really similar to the 50-watt version, I find. If you want more of a Van Halen kind of thing, just crank the supply sag, take it up to 6, and add some more mid-range in there. Sounds like this. And personally, as a kind of, I guess, less of a metal player and more of a hard rock player, this is where I would set this amp for a gig. Let's have a listen to the same settings on the red mode. We'll come to green in a second, so take the master down to 3. The red mode just has an insane amount of gain. Like, insane amount of gain. This is going to be probably too much. I'll probably have to turn it down, but let's listen to it. As you can hear, silly, a little bit too saturated for my liking. If we take the gain down to 2, though. So that's kind of cool there. If you turn the sag up and the gain down really low on the red mode, it's definitely got a different character than the blue mode. Let's check out the green mode now, because I think this is the really underrated one. And the way I like to run this one is if we take the level back down, leave the master at 5. And as you can hear there, it's really bright. So I'll turn the depth up and the presence down a little bit to start with. And we can probably take the treble down to about 5 there. Maybe 5's too far. Let's set it at 6. We can even take the level down further and use some of that power amp distortion to smooth stuff out. We'll take the master to 7. And the power supply all the way up to 6. Why not? And you kind of get this squishy classic rock kind of thing happening. Alternatively, turn the drive off and leave the amp. Oh, I better not turn it off. I'll leave the input drive where it is, and I'll play in the neck pickup, which on this guitar is a P90. And you get a beautiful kind of southern rock tone happening with that. You notice that I turned the bright switch on there just to add a little bit of treble and a little bit of drive. So that is the grand tour of the EVH 5153 modes. I do have to say, I did say at the start that I like the 50 watt mode more, but this 100 watt mode, every time I play it surprises me. So this is where I had it set, I think, from memory, somewhere around here. Let's have a listen to it again. Beautiful, saturated goodness. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Please leave a comment and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you around.